A couple weeks ago, I created a community post asking for your suggestions on what fuzzy sock plushie I should make next. I got a ton of great ideas, and I'll probably end up making most of them at some point in the future. But I figured first we'd start off with Allie Robertson's suggestion of making fruit-themed birds. So, as you gathered from the title and thumbnail, today we're going to be making a strawberry bird. This is just based off my basic bird design. You might have seen it in my 100 sock plushie video, and I've also got a tutorial for it on my channel. So, with that being said, let's get started. Ideally, I wanted the body of the bird to be a muted red sort of color, but I didn't have that in my fuzzy sock collection, and so I just pulled a bunch of pink and red shades to see which shade matched the best. I also had to keep in mind that the only green shade I had was this sort of pastel green, also not ideal, so I had to pick a lighter shade of red sock to match. I ended up going with this pink sock here. It's not perfect, but I figured it was the best I was going to get. Hopefully with the combination of the green, the plushie was going to look enough like a strawberry so that you could at least tell what it is. Then I moved on with creating the body of the bird. I cut off the toe of the sock a bit closer to the toe than I normally do, just to create a more round shape for a strawberry. And I began stuffing it with fiberfill, but I stopped about halfway through to add little scraps of fabric. Whenever I have a piece of fabric from my historical sewing that's too small to make into something, I chop it up into this really fine stuffing substitute sort of stuff. It's kind of dense, so I can't make the entire plushie out of it, but just adding a little bit to the center of each plushie helps to use up fabric scraps and save stuffing, and doesn't change the plushie at all texturally, so it's a really great way to be a bit less wasteful in all of my crafts. Then I can begin the actual sewing. I use upholstery thread and a larger needle for my plushies just because it shows up better on camera, but anything will do. And I'm just cutting a length of it so that I can close up the bottom of the bird. I start by using a backstitch to anchor my thread in the fabric, just going over the same spot multiple times. It's something that I picked up from historical sewing, and I just find it faster than using knots. Then I can bring the needle to the outside of the plush and begin using the running stitch all around the outside of the plush so that I can then pull it close like a drawstring bag. And I always make sure to tuck in the raw edges before securing over the whole thing with a few stitches. While I finish up doing that, here's some fun strawberry facts from Wikipedia. From a botanical point of view, the strawberry is not a berry, but an aggregate accessory fruit, meaning that the fleshy part is derived not from the plant's ovaries, but from the receptacle that holds the ovaries. Truly fascinating stuff. Anyway, back to the plushie. Just because I already had the thread anchored, I figured I'd create the two dimples where I wanted the eyes to be, and I'm just using a pin to mark where I want them to be. Usually I do this towards the end of making the plushie, but I figured I had the thread attached now, so why not? When I bring the thread back to the bottom of the plushie, I make sure there's a little bit of tension before securing off the thread, just so that the dimples stay in the plushie. Next I moved on to the wings, which I'm drawing out on the rest of the sock that we cut the toe off, using a Sharpie marker. And then I'll just go around and backstitch along the line, but not securing off my thread because we're going to use it to attach the wing to the body. With the thread still attached, I cut out the piece and flipped it inside out before using that thread to stitch up the opening in the wing. Then I stitched it to the body, but when I got around halfway down, I kind of took a large stitch across the center of the wing, catching the body fabric underneath to bring the thread to the other side and keep the other half of the wing detached from the body. And here's what the wings look like. Now that I had the basic shape of the bird, I started on the strawberry details. Using my green sock fabric, I drew out a shape for the stem and 3 leaves. And just like with the wings, I backstitched along these as well. I thought the stem was a bit long, so I trimmed it before stitching it to the plushie. I attached the stem first, just so that I had something to stitch the leaves to. For the leaves, I wanted to take a large stitch down the center to kind of divide them into 2 halves like real leaves, but I was too lazy to reattach my thread and do that on all of the leaves before stitching them onto the plushie, and so I kind of did this roundabout way of doing it instead, where I quickly stitched the bottom layer of the leaf to the plushie before taking several stitches down the center of the leaf through both layers to create that indent, and then stitching the entire leaf to the plushie a bit more securely. And this is what it looks like. Then I moved on to the beak of the bird, which I'm using needle felting wool to create. I just took a small amount, then kept on folding it and felting it flat again and again until I created this cylindrical shape, which I then felted until it was smooth. I noticed that one end was a bit narrower than the other, so I kind of just accentuated that by felting it more than the other side, so that the beak would have a bit more shape. Before stitching on the beak, I figured it would be easier to center it if I already had the eyes positioned, so I'm just using super glue to attach these flat-backed beads into the indents that I made earlier. Then I could attach the beak, making sure to take really small stitches so that they wouldn't show on the needle felting wool. Lastly, I made the strawberry seeds using this yellow yarn. It's a worsted weight cotton, and I'm just using a yarn needle so that the eye is large enough to accommodate the yarn. I just tried to take random stitches all around the plushie as evenly as I could. In the end though, I didn't really think it looked like a strawberry. It was a combination of the seeds being too long and the leaves being too short, I think. I decided to only fix the one that was easier to fix, and so I just removed all of the seeds and redid them, making them a bit smaller this time. And there you have it. This is the finished plushie. I absolutely love how it came out. If you guys want to leave your own suggestion for me to make, you can just comment on the old community post. I just don't want to create another one because I don't want a community post spam, so the other one's still there for you to access. If you enjoyed the video and you're new here, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. See you guys next time!